Please rise.
And if we can first pledge to the beautiful flag of our republic.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And to the great state of Texas.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Yeehaw. Thank you so much, Sharon. Now, I know there's a lot of candidates that are out block walking today. It's Sunday, and usually they do a lot of that block walking on the weekends. Do we have any candidates in the audience? If not, we'll skip over that part. They're out campaigning probably. Okay, fantastic. So let's get started with our program. Ladies and gentlemen, would you please give a Texas-sized welcome to Border Warrior Kelly Perry, Kinney County Attorney Brent Smith, and Goliad County Sheriff Roy Boyd. And a round of applause, everybody. Come on up.
Hello, y'all. I'm so glad y'all are here. I know there's a lot going on Sunday afternoon, and there's a lot of places you can be. But I think today, as you listen, you will find this to be very eye-opening. You will wonder how come you're not seeing a lot of this on TV, which is really, really one of the sad parts of all of this. And then when we're done, you're going to want to know what you can do to help. We can start with that. I want you to see this first. It's 8 minutes, and it's real news. And it will give you a whole insight to things that you have never even thought of. Go ahead.
We rejoined Ben and his team in Panama as buses from the UN shelters are loaded with migrants and sent north towards the American border.
2 buses down there loading up. Here comes the third one. This is the biggest day so far. All in the largest human smuggling operation in world history. Brought to you by Joe Biden and the Democrats. That's it. All day. The trucks bring them in from the river boats bring them down. Well, it starts way before this. It goes Brazil to Colombia. They bring them across on boats. Boats bring them to the jungle, the Darien Gap. They go through the Darien Gap. If they live through that, they take boats down. The trucks pick them up, take them to here. And now within 24 hours from starting at the end of the Darien Gap, they're into Costa Rica. These buses take them to Costa Rica, and they're on their way. All brought to you by Joe Biden and the Democrats. And the next round of buses is about to head out. Look at these kids. Imagine bringing these kids to the Darien Gap. How many of these kids died? Didn't make it. There they go, heading out. Coming to a city near you.
The UN transport buses are filled to the gills as they head off into the night.
We're going deep into the Emperor territory in the Darien Gap. Basically coming in from Panama, going the reverse direction. We were talking about that this morning. Joe Biden and the left are calling it controlled flow. What we need to do is reverse the flow and send them back. Our first boat of migrants coming, following 2 boats of produce, mostly avocados.
It's time to count the boats as Ben and his team head back upriver.
Where are you from? Over. Where are you from?
And we show you more of what Biden and Mayorkas are calling a controlled flow of immigrants.
Where are you from? Where are you from? Who's that fool? Who's that fool? Bangladesh.
It's crazy.
5 so far. And 7 right behind it.
Every single one of those life jackets represents money into the pockets of the cartel.
Where are you from? Where are you from? Who's that fool? Where are you from? Huh? No? Oh, that back one, that's all African. 2 more. 3 more. Oh, we got a bunch here. Wow, we got a bunch here.
These migrants from all over the world are being guided by the UN and brought to our country by the open-bordered leftist politicians who sit in the highest offices in America.
Where are you from? Who's that fool? What? Where are you from? Every day. There's 11. Ooh, dang, they're almost about to flip.
It's hard to believe that the enemies sitting on Capitol Hill are allowing this hostile takeover at our southern border to be narrated and disguised as some type of humanitarian effort.
They didn't speak English, French, or Spanish. We're at 11 already. Holy crap, and it's everywhere. We got China, we got Africa, we got everything. Oh, here's 12. Non-stop. Where are you from? Venezuela? Man, this is unbelievable. We're already at 12 boats. Several of the boats, we asked in 3 languages, English, Spanish, and French. Where are they from? They didn't answer. Several of them were from Asian countries. And then we did get Bangladesh, and we had a couple boats that were all from Africa. Crazy. Crazy, crazy, crazy. That's 14 boats this Sunday morning, heading up deep into the Darien Gap. We're heading to the first village we've already been to, and then deeper than that. 14 boats already. Wow, where's the front of that boat? Where are you from? Where are you from? Ah, he said he's from China. He was saying that's what he thinks of Xi Jinping. More here. 16. This is like all Africa. And we got center front. This might be the last one. Who's that fool? Who's that fool? Where are you from? Where are you from? Bangladesh? Cameroon? Cameroon. Wow. The thing to remember on this is they don't want you to see this. That's this whole idea of control flow, is that they control it, they move it past you before you can see it. That's why it's so critical we're out here showing you this. And how quickly, like last night, how quickly they load up, they get to the camp, they load up the buses, they move them on to Costa Rica, they get them out of sight. They just, that's the whole idea. And the crazy thing is, we are increasing it. That's what our government is doing.
It's hard to believe that even though they are thousands of miles from the southern American border, that this migrant invasion is affecting even the most rural locations and trade routes.
That's why it's so critical, guys. We have to secure our elections.
It's interesting, he's telling me up in the village now gas is $7 a gallon. And people are really suffering to move their produce downriver. And it's amazing, this is all part of Joe Biden's Go Green scheme.
Wow.
The people where the hammer falls the hardest. Trying to make a living.
Wow. Wow. So even here, the attack of the radical environmentalists that pretend they want to protect the climate, that are destroying it, the environment, because of their open borders policies, are now also destroying these villages because of their increased gas prices, because they won't drill for more oil. And the only people that are making money are the boat drivers bringing illegals down. So you're just incentivizing more of it. Wow. And one of the scariest things to me about all this is how efficient it's becoming. Every country along the way should be extremely difficult. Every nation should be protecting their own borders, their own sovereignty. The easier we make this for people to come and break into our country and break into all these other countries, the harder it is to stop them once they get to ours. Basically, what the Democrats are doing now is opening the doors. You get into Brazil, you get through Colombia, you get through Panama, you get through Costa Rica, you get through Nicaragua, you get through Guatemala, you get through Mexico, then you get to the United States, and then, only then, are we saying, well, now stop. And we're not even saying that now, we're just letting them in. It's impossible. We don't stop this at the first country that these people get to. And think about the difference. If we stop them at the first country, how much easier that is. If you fly over and immediately you're sent back. Not going to do that again. But if you fly over and you get through 4, 5, 6, 7 countries, you think you're making it. You're getting there. And then you see the United States. We are inviting that. We have created this. And they're only making it, rather than making it more difficult and telling people, no, you can't come, they're doing the exact opposite and making it easier for them. It is terrifying to think what this means for the future of our country.
Coming up on Law and Border, we head deep into the jungle villages who have been devastated by...
So a lot of people think that these people just materialize in Mexico, and then they just come across and make their way into the United States. The really sad part is the United States gives $11 billion a year to the United Nations. We are funding our own demise. You can watch the news, or you can get out and fight with your legislators, your senators, and your congressmen. It's very, very important. That was the Darien Gap. You can do your own research. It's all real. A lot of people wonder if what they're hearing is true, and you need to know that the next slide, I'm going to show you. The sound didn't come through. You can go ahead and put it up there. This is a migrant center in San Antonio. Actually, that's not. That's the criminals. So I'll tell you about the criminals, and then we'll get the other one. Do y'all know how many countries there are in this world? There's, if you look it up, it's going to say 193 or 195. I know, right? There's 2 that don't really get counted all the time. And a lot of times we just say they're coming from 150 countries. That was before. I think they just quit counting, and actually they've quit counting everything. You can look for people coming over, and that number's not real. You can look for unaccompanied minors, those numbers are not real. If they're coming from all those countries, and you need to think about this, they're used to a different way of life. Okay. How about no respect for human life? They're walking into our country. They're going all over the United States. They see things that we cannot even imagine. And the children that are coming in and growing up have seen horrific things, and they don't even know they're horrific. The criminals, this is what this is right here. When I say this next thing, everybody thinks I'm lying, but you can ask Sheriff Boyd. This is the truth. When they come into the United States from all these countries, they're checked against one criminal database. One. The United States of America criminal database. That's one of my favorite parts, because everybody's chin just kind of drops to the floor and they wonder if I'm telling you the truth. Only if they've been to the United States before. And if they're in our database, will they be stopped? They know. That's why cartels, it's such a commodity to them to have people coming across that work for them that have never committed a crime. Not only do they just get to walk across, they're given $1,400, a cell phone, and a ride on the Cartel Express anywhere they want to in the United States that Cartel is now setting up. Again, we pay for it. All of it. For months, I have said that it's the criminals. You know, was it Cuba that sent all those, opened their jails several years ago? Well, now they're coming from everywhere. Why would you keep those murderers and pay to feed them and house them for the rest of their lives? Why? You just put them on a bus and bring them through Texas. One of the reasons the crime is so bad now in the United States is because of the defunding the police. And you don't hear it, but the truth is we're just letting them in the border. I want to say it's either 74 or 79 terrorists have been caught. 15%, 20% is what we're catching. 8 to 15% are caught. Are caught. Half the time, most of them are just let go. Those are terrorists. They think nothing. It's like going and getting coffee to kill people. In a place like Dallas, if you do what normal people do and you get up and you have breakfast and maybe go to work or don't go to work, and you go and you shop and you do what you need to for your family, there is a whole other life that's happening while you're sleeping. They're coming into every city. You know why the big cities? It's easier to disappear. They just disappear. And I don't mean like death disappear. They find relatives, or they live in, they'll go to the lower income, and they find a way to make some money. And if they don't, they become criminals. It would be very nice if they were arrested and got sent back. As you can see, that's easier said than done. I have a lot of people that say, why aren't we sending them back to Mexico? Because they're not from Mexico. There are some from Mexico, but majority are from the rest of the world. And the weird part is that they do away with their identification. They have no identification. They are whoever they say they are. And depending on how dark their skin is, they can say they're from wherever. Anywhere. And they say they're good guys too. I doubt any of them would want to tell you they're not. When you hear about different things about the port of entries, I want to tell you a little bit about our county and one or two other things, and then Brent's going to come up and we'll be bringing y'all through from the border, through the towns, through a town that's further in, that's being exploded with all these wonderful people that have chosen to make a life with us. Living between ports of entry, we are, think about it, if they do have a record, where are they coming? Between the ports of entry. Between the ports of entry. When we first started, January 20th, 21, right? Our county had 6 deputies, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, rotation. They didn't all work at the same time, right? You can divide by 3 shifts. That's what we had. And it took about 6 or 7 months till we were finally got some real notice from our governor's office. We really appreciate what they've done. You'll learn more about that as we go along. But needless to say, when it came down to the game of tag with our deputies' arms out, they were just coming in. MS-13, the worst of the worst. We finally got more people. Now our more people are being spread over more and more miles. And there's people coming and we're in Dallas, okay? And I tell you that because they don't want to live where I live. They want to live where you live. Your legislators, your senators, if you're not familiar with what's going on, you need to become aware. And you need to not stay quiet. You need to let your voice be heard. Because if you don't do it, who's going to do it? I've been in politics now. I call this politics, okay? 2 years. 2 years. So 2 years ago I voted. This old guy made it into the White House. And I kept asking, where are the children? Because the numbers that were being housed weren't the same numbers that were coming through the ports of entry. Unaccompanied minors. I kept calling. Called my congressman. I don't have a very good congressman. Senators. My congressman is actually Chip Roy. He's not really, but we adopted him and he kind of adopted us. And so when I have a problem, I call him. And the other day I asked him, what are we going to do about these children? 50%, 240,000 have been counted. Okay, in a year and a half. 240,000 unaccompanied minors. 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds. About 50%, that's how many they can tell me where they might be. 50% have disappeared. And I was speaking to a gentleman a little while ago. He says in California, it's a lot worse than even here. You know, that's scary. Those are Texas numbers. Texas numbers. What's going on elsewhere? Personally, I can't worry about them because I'm so worried about Texas. I just want something fixed here for us. We're going to keep going, but I want to tell you something real quick. This is real important because everybody asked me about this. They asked me if I'm happy with Abbott. I will tell you that I will be voting for him. You will be voting for him. And everybody you know better vote for him. Because if Francis O'Rourke, Beto, okay, loser. If he makes it into office, we will not have a Texas, and even you'll be going north. Our border won't be southern, it's going to be northern. There's no way we would survive. It's not about the person, it's about the way of life. And the way of life is what you're voting for. Hopefully, after the election, I've been told that he will listen more to more people. And I like to think I can trust that being told to me. I'm an SREC, State Republican Executive Committee. I'm on the executive board for the Republican Party of Texas for my district. I was sent there, God sent me there, there's no ifs and buts about it. I came in December, and I'm a newbie. And I am the Vice Chair of Legislative Priorities. And I am the Chairman of Border Security Legislative Priority. Why? Because I live this and breathe it every day. There will be a lot of people fighting for us when we get there. You need to be sure those people running are fighting for what you want. I find people all the time that say, oh yeah, I was working for so-and-so, putting out signs, doing whatever. I'm like, well, do you know where they stand on the border? Please find out. Because you're the ones that can make things happen. Those newbies, those new legislators, they're new. I mean, they're new. Some of them don't even show up half the time out there. It's pretty scary for me. You have power. You helped get them elected. You voted for them, I'm assuming. You have to make them listen. They are being held accountable by you. The last thing I wanted to go over real quick. You're paying for everything for these people coming in from the whole world. Everything. The children that come in, the UAs that are placed, their children kicked out of foster homes, United States children, because they get $60 more a day for the unaccompanied minors. Yes, the subsidies, you're paying for them. If you like it, okay. Hopefully you don't. Hopefully you'll let your voice be heard. The biggest thing that's suffering, besides what you don't know is moving into your neighborhoods, is education. The future of our state and our country, education. Classrooms are overpacked. They're having to teach to the lowest, not denomination, that's not the word, the lowest level of the highest education of those children. Does that make sense? If they've never been to school and they're 13 and they're stuck in 5th grade or 6th grade, that class is going to have to teach to that level. They have to. Can't teach to the highest. They're not just speaking Spanish, as most of y'all think. Those were returned to Mexico, in case y'all wondered. How many of them were really from Mexico that got sent back or said they were from somewhere else and went on to somewhere else? There's just no accountability. When we flipped the house in November, one of the first things they told me they would do is find these children. It's our country, guys. It's our country. We're allowing sex trafficking, human trafficking. People buy these teenagers, and if they're not put into the sex trade, they're used on farms as day labor, and they have to work their time off. They are slaves, pretty much for the rest of your life. But I'll leave that part to Roy also. They love me. There's a lot of people that speak at these, and the first person gets to take all of their stuff. So I'm trying to be fair. So, I would like you to research and find out how to follow a bill. How many of you remember in 5th grade how a bill becomes a law? Y'all remember? It was a cartoon and he had glasses. Okay, that's still fact. There's some better ones that have been made, but it's the truth. So if you don't know how a bill becomes a law, go find that. It's really entertaining. A lot of people do not know. I have to tell you, I am fighting to get legislation done, and I had to ask my husband 2 years ago. And I tell you that because if I can do this, I'm not a professional speaker, as you can tell. That's not what we do. We're out sharing the facts, making you laugh if I can, and if I can't, oh well, you can go watch Avatar at the theater. Avatar, sorry, not Avatar, Avatar. I want you to go on the Texas GOP website, and I want you to read what Republican principles are. Most people don't know. You know who you morally stand for and what you do, but you don't. A lot of you, how many of you ever read them? How many of them know all of the Republican principles? Yeah, that's what everybody tells me. It's really, really, really important, especially if you're fighting. We won't use the word fighting. Arguing with somebody that you want to switch parties. It's really good to kind of know what your party stands for. So I ask you to study that, print it, keep it, and then you'll be even prouder of how you're voting. I'm assuming you're voting with me. I mean, I would assume that if I'm standing here. Legislative priorities. We had a convention this last summer. Almost 6,000 people were there. And out of the state, they voted on what things and changes that they want to see through legislation. You need to look that up. TexasGOP.org. You can also follow a bill. You find out how your legislature that you are voting for, if they were in there last time, go look and see what they did. Go see what they voted for. See if they're telling you the truth. I know, heaven forbid, every single politician tells the truth. I do know that. But you can still check. These are important to your growth as an informed citizen. And then you got something to tell your friends. And then tell their friends and friends, and we can just educate everybody. Don't expect others to do it. It is for you, and it's for you now. Okay, next, I'm done. Next, I'm gonna have Brent come up. Brent Smith is my county attorney, constitutional attorney. I want to tell you a couple of things in case you didn't know it. In April last year, Brent, along with Sheriff Boyd, Gallia County and Kinney County, were the very first county to file a disaster of declaration. Did I say it backwards? Local state of disaster. I've been doing that. I can't fix it. Sorry. In my brain like that. They were the first, and then it spread all over the place. Some of them dropped out because they were promised more money if they didn't file it. I know, nothing makes sense in Texas anymore. They also were the first ones recently to draw that line in the sand, again for the Declaration of Invasion. I did say that one right. They're from all over the state. All over the state. They're not border towns. East Texas, North Texas. Where's Collins County? All of them. They're filing all around us. Can you do that? I'll give you my card after this. It's very simple. Actually, I'll just give it his card. Anyway, he can tell you how to do it. I can give you Rachel's card. You can take care of that yourself and get your county to file. It's not hard. I'm sure all of y'all can talk. You can use a phone. And you're one more county, because when we go into legislation, all those counties will be held up to those legislators. Okay.
Thank you. I'm going to start this off a little bit about talking about what caused the issues. Why are we looking at what we're looking at on the border? And what it started with was DHS, Department of Homeland Security. Congress passes immigration laws. They're the ones that decide who's going to be deported, who's going to be a citizen, what the process is, etc. But like in Congress, a lot of people in Washington, they give limited authority to agencies, which is Department of Homeland Security. A good way to compare it is if a city gave, like a fire department, a mission of preventing fires in the town. They want fire hydrants so many blocks apart. They want fire equipment. They want personnel to fight fires. So they have a mission that they're supposed to do, prevent and put out fires. Well, DHS has the same type of mission for immigration enforcement. And what agencies, federal agencies, are allowed to do under law is to implement policies, to implement the congressional immigration law. Policies are not law, they're a policy. They're not passed by Congress, they're created by DHS themselves. And essentially what DHS and Secretary Morris did, using the firefighter example, is they turned off the water to every fire hydrant. So are the fire hydrants there? Yes. But are they useful? No. And so that's why several lawsuits have been filed. In fact, Kinney County did join with other counties to file a lawsuit against DHS and President Biden. But that's where the problem started at. DHS changed their policies on immigration enforcement, which started the process of everyone coming over the border. I took office in January of 21, and I think in February, I started noticing the numbers increasing of trespassing, arrests at the border. I mean, it was astronomical. And very quickly, it began to overwhelm our law enforcement and Border Patrol with processing. And so that's when I reached out to, well, actually I didn't reach out to Sheriff Boyd from Goliad County, and their county judge reached out to me, and we decided to declare a local state of disaster, which prompted, I think, 36 or 40 counties total that eventually did that. And so that's when it started, was when DHS changed their policies to basically not enforce immigration law. Because only Congress can pass immigration law. They're the only ones that actually make the rules, not DHS. But they decided not to enforce the laws by implementing their liberal policies under Joe Biden. So that's why everyone says, well, we need to enforce our laws. Well, you know, we have the laws in place. They probably need to be tweaked, I think, to not allow agencies like DHS the discretion on not enforcing them. But that's how we started it. Kenyon County residents, you know, Kelly spoke about the port of entry thing. So to our north, we have a port of entry, which is a bridge that goes across the border where people can come and go. To our south, we have another bridge in a different county. So Kenyon County is in the middle of these two ports of entry. If you're an illegal alien not willing to be captured by law enforcement, you obviously don't want to go through the port of entry. So there's a funnel type system we have in Kenyon County where there's no ports of entry next to us, except for Maverick County, which is Eagle Pass, as y'all see on the news, and in Del Rio, which is Valverde County. So that's why we have so much human trafficking, human smuggling, evading arrests, stash houses. You know, right now in the county, we have over 7,000 criminal offenses that are being prosecuted. Wow. That's criminal trespass and the ones I just named. So our judicial system is slammed. I think before the border crisis, we would have 6 cases a month. And now we're at about 400 to 500 a month. And so that's where Operation Lone Star comes in. Operation Lone Star was started by Governor Abbott, as you know, and it surged law enforcement to the border, giving us resources, prosecutorial resources, everything, even the county clerk. Because we soon realized, like, if the county clerk who files all the documents in the courthouse, if they don't have the resources, then the whole system will collapse on itself because they can't keep up with the filings. So we finally have that going. And is Operation Lone Star the solution? No. But it's the only thing right now keeping us from having a truly open border. It's part of the solution. But without Operation Lone Star and several other steps, we wouldn't have a county. I can tell you that. We've had a county resident a few months ago was driving down the road, much, you know, like some of y'all do every day, and all of a sudden she started getting fired upon with gunfire coming from the opposite side of the road, oncoming traffic. A human smuggler, a cartel operative, was being chased by DPS, and hoping to get away, they started firing into oncoming traffic, hitting her vehicle multiple times. So that's what we're dealing with. In fact, Benji, if you start some of the videos, and I'll kind of explain each one what's kind of happening. These are just from Kenyon County itself. I'm not turning on the lights. These are some illegal aliens that DPS is in the middle of arresting right now. It's using a thermal imaging device. This is on private property in Kenyon County. They just walk right down the road. These are the gotaways you won't hear about. These are the ones that do not want to turn themselves in. They throw away their IDs, and they'll walk up to 30 to 40 miles just to not be apprehended by law enforcement. Same thing here. This is at night with a thermal drone. Law enforcement did end up catching those. Same thing, but during the day, another group. I'm not sure if these were caught. But you start counting them, how many there are, and that's going on 24/7, you know, year round. They don't stop when it gets cold. They don't stop when it gets hot. In fact, many of them die in the process. We found probably these last 2 years over 30 bodies now, these last 2 years, and that's the ones we found. There's many more we'll never find. This is another camera. They're at a water trough getting water, continuing on their way. And even though, despite what you hear and see in the news, 90% or probably 95% are single adult males. There's no family units in here. Maybe 1 out of every 200 will be under 17. But almost all of them are single adult males. And most of these, not arrested, not apprehended. For trespassing alone, we've arrested over 4,000 people since last August. And we're not even, like Sheriff Boyd said, we're not even catching 15% of them. That's just what we were able to catch. And this is all occurring on private property. Another group. Now this is in the middle of Operation Lone Star, what it looks like at the courthouse, where all the troopers or the brush teams that would go out, a lot of troopers. This is probably at the height of Operation Lone Star right here. That's a courthouse in the background. But there's a large law enforcement presence, obviously. Like I said, that's the only thing standing in the way of an open border in Texas. And we're not even catching 15% of them, but it's something we're trying to do. These are a couple that are being chased. I think there's a DPS officer that catches them here in a minute. But I'll keep talking here, I'll watch that. In a video here in a minute, you'll see our school. We have to put military barricades around our school campus. Because of the smuggling chases that occur almost every day, we're trying to protect the children going to school, so we have these big barriers around, so any of the cars can't go into the campus or injuring children. And I think that's the last video that you're gonna see on this thing. That's one DPS officer, by the way, apprehending a big group for himself. But they're very limited on the personnel that we have right now. The devastation on the ranching industry in Kinney County is amazing. It's unprecedented. Because what happens is they'll cut fences. They cut fences when they come to them. Obviously, they don't repair them when they leave. But if you have a 200-acre pasture where you're trying to raise cattle, if you can't keep that fence up and keep your cattle in, then you're going to face liability if the cattle get out onto the highways. So several ranchers have just abandoned certain pastures and said, I can't keep the fences up, so I can't use it to keep cattle. So that's 500 acres or 200 acres of useless land that they can't utilize. In fact, it's a takings of, without due process of your property. If you can't keep the fence up, then you can't use it. And they're just overwhelmed. There's not a state or federal reimbursement program that'll help them with the fences. And fences, I mean, they're a lot more expensive than you would think. If you want to repair a pasture fence, like say half a mile, you're looking at several $1,000s, tens to $15,000, $20,000 to do that. And it's not repairing the fence one time, it's repairing the fence every week. It's kind of if you had a fender bender, you go to the car shop, you have to pay about $2,000 to get a door replaced or something like that. Having that once a year is not a huge issue, but if you had to do it every week, it's a real big issue. And that's what's happening with the ranchers. It's not the one-time repair, it's the every week trying to repair your fence, hiring someone just to do repairs, and that's it alone. So they're financially going bankrupt, not able to do that, and moving out of the county. There's several of them that have retired, and they moved, or especially if they have kids, they're moving the children out of harm's way. In Eagle Pass, the businesses in Eagle Pass have actually changed their hours of operation where they close before it gets dark, because they're worried about their employees walking or trying to get to their vehicles, because the amount of people in Eagle Pass, the little aliens on the street. Could you imagine that if Dallas all of a sudden changed its hours of operation where every store is now closed before sunset? That's what's happening on the border. But you don't hear about that very often. I think Kelly spoke about this, but Border Patrol has reported 1,500 deaths in the river due to drownings. And that's just on the river. And that's what they reported. It wouldn't surprise me at all if it was twice that. Every single day that there's bodies being pulled out of Rio Grande. You couldn't pay me enough to drink that water. And the poisoning of fentanyl is something I think is hopefully going to get more media attention. Border crime is somewhat unique compared to other crime, because most cities cannot eliminate every criminal act or all the crime. It's going to happen. But with border crime, it's different. You can actually trace that person that commits that crime back to him or her crossing the border, or that pill of fentanyl killing someone crossing the border. To where if that pill had never got across the border, that person would have never been poisoned and died. It's all preventable. It's a preventable death. It's a preventable assault, a preventable rape. If your child gets poisoned by fentanyl, and you know that because of an unsecured border, that pill was allowed to come in, that's what I'm talking about, how it's different than most other crimes. It's preventable. Actually, it's preventable. So that's one of the other reasons that we need to secure the border immediately. Every day, I think 100 people die of fentanyl poisoning from some type of drug overdose that comes through the southern border. 100 people a day. And so if you have legislators or politicians that say, well, they don't want to act to do something, how many deaths are they okay with? 1,000, 2,000 people dead? You know, when does it become a problem to them? That's what it really comes down to. And you know, the numbers by CBP or Border Patrol that they have released, I think, you know, the ones that they have released, we're over 3 million apprehensions now. And that's 3 million apprehensions. That's not the gotaways. That's who they've actually put hands on. And if that 3 million is essentially 15% of the total. If you want to go on and say, let's say 15%. 3 million is 15% of the total. They've caught 70 known terrorists. Those 70 are 15% of the total that are in the country now. We have no idea where they're at. But the other thing people don't realize is the cost. There was a study done before this crisis that each illegal alien cost the state of Texas $37,000 a year, each one per year. That's housing, Medicare, education, everything. You start doing the numbers on how many Texas has absorbed at $37,000 each per year. Property tax is bad, but you think it's bad, it's going to be a lot worse once we get that bill. So if people don't care about secure border, they usually do care about money. And you can also talk to them about that. And the main thing that Sheriff Boyd's going to talk about, I'm going to give him a lot of time because he likes to talk a lot. This is all related to cartels, every single part of it. From them getting on the boat in that video, to them stepping foot in New York, to them committing crimes. The only person or organization that benefits from this are the cartels. They have, you know, a good example is Texas right now, in our neck of the woods. We don't have a jail. We don't have a place that can hold women. Not many. We have to ship them to different counties that can hold them. So the cartel started sending a lot of women as smugglers because they know they won't spend a day in jail. Well, we now have contracts with several jails around the state where we can house some of the women we arrest. Well, now what do the cartels do? Now they're using pregnant women. Women are actually getting pregnant on purpose and go with the smuggle because a pregnant woman, you can't hardly put her in jail until she has a baby. So the cartels are using the system against us and our own legal system against us to smuggle drugs and people into the country. Make no mistake, our battle is with the federal government, but our main battle is with the cartels. That's the driving force. And that's why I applaud Governor Abbott for designating them as a terrorist organization, because that's what they are. They've done everything ISIS has and then some. They are responsible for more deaths than ISIS could wish on their best day. Hundreds of people, thousands of people, they have poisoned with fentanyl. And that's not a regular drug that you can overdose with by taking a lot of it. You know, enough that fits on the tip of a pin will kill you if you have it into your system. It is not I wouldn't even classify it as a drug, it's a poison. And, you know, several states have actually classified it as a weapon of mass destruction because it's that dangerous. And they are shipping it every single day, 24/7 across the border. So everyone wonders about solutions. What can we do about it? Right now, there's two people in the United States that can resolve this issue. One of them is Biden. So we might as well just scrap that solution. The only other person that can actually do something about this is Governor Abbott. Under the Constitution, under Article 1, every state reserved the power to self-defense if actually invaded or threatened with imminent harm. That's what the disaster declaration that we're talking about, the invasion declaration that we're talking about does. Governor Abbott can invoke that Article 1 authority and secure the border. It's not on a basis of immigration. He's not enforcing immigration law. He's enforcing constitutional law. And he's trying to protect Texans by doing so. And if it means he sends people back and deports them, then that's fine. But it's not immigration, it's constitutional authority that he has to invoke. So that's the only solution that we have in this crisis. You know, there's other people that talk about an interstate compact, which is several states can get together, form an agreement to enforce immigration, but that agreement by 2 or more states has to be ratified by Congress. So that's a big what if that happens. We can't wait around 2.5 years for another president either. How many people, thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people will die if we get someone elected that will force the border, if our vote counts, if there's a lot of what ifs to get 2.5 years from now. We can't wait that long. I know King County can't. We won't be there. And I'm serious about that. Our ranching industry, our hunters, they're leaving by the score every day. We don't have another industry in King County besides ranching and hunting. So it's very important that you contact your legislatures. This next session, which starts in January, is going to be the most important legislative session of our lifetimes, bar none. Bar none. They need to realize that. There's going to be several bills introduced, I believe, for the border. And they need to know the seriousness and the disaster that's going on right now. Texas is basically on the operating table, bleeding out. And we have to do something to stop the bleeding. If we don't, we won't have a state. And if Texas falls, the rest of the United States will fall right with it. Guaranteed. That's all I have for today, but we'll have some question and answers here in a minute. Our next speaker is Roy Boyd. Should I do his intro?
Go for it.
Well, like I said, Roy Boyd is one of the first sheriff that came to our aid when we filed the local state disaster in King County last March or April. And his county is also the one that declared an invasion with us. Sheriff Boyd's been with me hand in hand, pretty much, going through this whole process. He's a heck of a sheriff, and he knows a lot about the cartels. And I encourage you to listen to him. And don't glue him too bad. Thank you.
Everything I was going to talk about, Kelly Perry talked about. Thank you all very much. I can't stand here behind the podium. It drives me crazy. So, like he said, my name is Roy Boyd. I'm the sheriff in Goliad County. We are a rural county, 859 square miles, 7,400 souls. We're about 180 miles from the border. So it seems like it would be strange that we would kind of get highly involved in border security issues, but it's not really a border problem. It's a lot bigger than that, because we really don't have an immigration issue. What we have is we have a slave trade issue. We have an organized crime issue, and we have a corrupt government issue. Those are the things that we are facing. And they all work hand in hand, because there's a whole lot of greed and there's a whole lot of money to be made. And so, I'll tell you right now, the border is secure, but not in the way that we want it secure. The border is secured by the cartels. The cartels ruthlessly control the border, and they make sure that everybody who comes through that border pays them their money. And if they don't, they kill them. And how do we know that? Because they found train car loads of dead people in Mexico that had tried to sneak across the border without paying the cartel. The cartel is absolutely ruthless. They will not tolerate not giving their money. And we've seen it firsthand. And so this issue is far greater than most people realize, because I'll explain a little bit of how the functionality is, because you see these people coming across, and let me ask you, where do you think they're going? Does anybody know? Does anybody know how they know where to go? I mean, if you were from Nicaragua, do you think you'd know where to go in the United States?
Big cities,
Very
Democrat
simple.
cities.
When you get here, the cartel tells you where you have to go. Because what happens is these people are gathered up by the United Nations, by Catholic Charities, by the Red Cross, by different organizations like that, and they are brought and they're turned over to the cartels like you saw in that video. Those groups work with the United Nations. They turn those people over to the cartels. The cartels have to bring them through Mexico. And every state they go through in Mexico, they have to stop and pay the La Mordida to the local, state officials and federal officials, which is the bite, which means they have to basically pay the government officials for passage through their jurisdiction. And they make their way all the way north to the border. And when they get there, most of these people think they're free. They think we're going to get smuggled across and we're going into America. And I've spent a lot of time with these folks, and believe it or not, they don't want to be Americans. They just want our money, and they want they want the same thing that they think they're going to get from us, which is they're going to come here, they're going to work, they're going to make a bunch of money, and they're gonna send that money back home to wherever their home country is. Well, the problem is, once they get across, typically where we're at, they get taken to Houston. If you're coming in Del Rio, you're coming in the valley, it doesn't matter, you get traffic to Houston. When you get to Houston, they find out they're not free. They actually owe another $10,000 to the cartel. And so at that point, they're slaves, because they belong to the cartel. The cartel is the one who sends them to their destination in the United States, because the cartel has a massive network within the United States. They send them to Atlanta, they send them up here to Dallas, they send them to Chicago. The cartel has hubs that I kind of equate it to a Walmart. All right? They have warehouses and distribution centers. There's Walmarts everywhere. But the product doesn't go straight to Walmart. The product goes to a distribution warehouse, and then it gets sent out to the different Walmarts. This is the exact same model. They send all these people to Houston. From Houston, they distribute them out to other warehousing cities, and then from there, they send them out to their final destinations. I actually have a letter in my desk that I got from a sex slave house out of Rockport, Texas, on a search warrant. And it articulates that it takes 8 to 13 years to buy your freedom once you come to the United States. The letter starts off, here in the United States, we have something called a slave boy or a slave girl. How many of you thought slavery ended after the Civil War? Well, it didn't. Slavery is far larger now than it ever was before the Civil War. And it is a huge industry. And it's kind of like I think Kelly was saying, you know, these people wind up working in different industries where you go to your hotel and, you know, you have the people cleaning the rooms and none of them speak any English. Those people aren't the employees of the Holiday Inn. They're not the employees of Hampton. What happens is, you know, if Brent has a hotel, he doesn't want to have to pay FICA, Social Security, and all that stuff. So what he does to hire people to clean the rooms is he comes to me and says, hey, Roy, I need a group of people to come in here and clean this place every day. I'm going to contract with you, and I'm going to give you a flat rate. And I'll pay you this much money for the maid service and the groundskeeping and all that for my hotel. And so I'm like, okay. So I go to Kelly, and Kelly's the person who works close with the cartel and has all of the slaves, and I tell her, I need 15 people, all right? I need 5 men and 10 women for what I'm gonna, for my contract with Brent here. And so she sells those human beings to me, and I buy them. And I put them in a 1-bedroom apartment. There'll be 15 of them in a 1-bedroom apartment. And so he's paying me. I'm putting them up. I paid her to buy them. Well, now what happens is I charge them rent. I charge them for their food. I charge them for everything. Electricity, water, I charge them for everything. So they go to work every day like I've told them to, and then I only pay them what I think they need, which is very little. They are my slaves. They belong to me. And that's how that system works. And I've seen it firsthand where, man, they sure are getting close to paying off that debt. I've only got another 2 years with them. I really need to get myself a new group of slaves. So what I do is I'll sell them to you. And now you do the same thing with your own contracts. And then I go get myself a new set of slaves from Kelly. And I just keep my contract. And this happens far more than people realize. And so what we have is we have all of this going on all across the United States. Can anybody here tell me how many slaves were brought to the Western Hemisphere during the years of the African slave trade, which was over 200 years of slave trade? Can anybody tell me? An estimated 10 to 12 million slaves were brought from Africa to the Western Hemisphere. Only 4% came to North America. You wouldn't think that if you listen to everybody talk, but only 4% came to North America. How many slaves are on the face of the earth, a conservative estimate, on any given single day right now? Does anybody know? 29 to 30 million slaves on any given day. That's more than 200 years of African slave trade. All across the world, 29 to 30 million. And that's conservative. Has always been in history, Africa is still the #1 slave trading continent in the world. They hold more slaves than anybody else. But that's what we're facing, because that's the problem is this is not immigration. And the Democrats will always tell you, this is a humanitarian thing. We have to let these people in. We have to take care of them. These people are slaves. They are being brought here to be slaves. And the Democrat Party knows it. And the politicians know it. Which is more humanitarian? To tell somebody to stay home and fix your own country? Because that's what should be happening. Or is it more humanitarian to ship them here and make them live 15, 20 old men in a one-bedroom apartment and make them slaves for the rest of their lives? Which is more humanitarian? I ask you. Because just like Brent was saying, there's no telling how many of them die on the trek to get here. Mexico has half the population of the United States. It has twice the reported murder rate of the United States. Twice the reported murder rate. And the government of Mexico estimates that less than 1 out of 10 murders in Mexico is ever even reported to the police. Just take that in. That's phenomenal. Just think how many people die coming up or killed by these cartels. And if you don't think the cartels aren't doing that here, then you're mistaken. The difference is the cartels are very clean about it. We don't get murder cases. What we get is missing person cases. And those are the people that the cartel has come and taken, and they've hauled them off and killed them somewhere. Because they're very efficient at this. So, I'll bring it back down to a local level in a place like Goliad County. I came into office just like Brent, January 2021. You know, I come in, I've worked at 2 larger agencies. I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to be here, it's rural, we're going to go out, we're going to look at the drug problem, we're going to see what we can do to prevent crime. And next thing you know, I mean, I'm not a month in and I get in the first pursuit a block from the sheriff's office in a Camaro with like 14 people in it. I mean, it's like, you know, it's like the clown car thing. But there's like 14 people in this thing, and I'm chasing it in town, and they're bailing out, and so we're catching as many of these people as we can. And from there, it just kind of takes off. And then what happens is in March, we go to a ranch, and we get in a pursuit with a guy that's trespassing on a ranch. And this guy's fast, and we're chasing him through brush for miles. Well, we go back, and what we find out is we recovered 20 trash bags full of trash at this ranch. We're like, man, this is like some kind of super site the cartel's using or something. And so the cartel had been using that place since 2019. And we were 3 months into office and found this location. And what we did was, we go through all that and we start gathering evidence. Because back then they were sloppy, they'd leave their trash, now they pick it all up. But we go through all the receipts, we go through everything, and what we find is that the cartel was bringing a lot of people through there. We take that information, we start hitting the roads, we start knocking people down, we work with, fortunately for us, our Department of Homeland Security investigators, really good people. Our prosecutor, a really great prosecutor. We start working cases with these folks, and we start building. And what we find out is that these folks have been running a lot of people through here. And it's about that time that they have the 90 slaves found in the house in Houston. How many of y'all remember that? Made national news. 90 slaves found in the house. Every one of them came off of that ranch in Goliad. We knocked down enough people that we got their cell phones. These things are horrible and wonderful at the same time, because cartel members and their operatives can't help but take videos and pictures and put them on TikTok. And so I got one video that's 130 illegal aliens and 8 cartel members and a bunch of stolen trucks on that ranch at one time. Got another video where there's over 200 illegal aliens, a whole bunch of Gulf cartel members, and 8 stolen trucks there at one time. All that in small rural South Texas. And what we did was we started an aggressive campaign to push them out of our county. You know, I put up signs in the ditches. I went to war with TxDOT over it. We were telling them to go around our county, or we chase them down and throw them in jail. And so we were constantly in pursuits and bailouts, and it was one after another. Eventually, we put enough pressure on them. The Department of Homeland Security came to me and said, hey, they said, Roy, they're passing your picture around down there, and they're showing your signs, and they're telling their drivers just go around the damn county. It's not worth it. The sheriff will throw you in jail down there. And so they started driving around us. Now, with Brent and some of those folks, we pushed the governor for Operation Lone Star, and we were able to get funding. And we hired some people to go out and do nothing but deal with this problem. And as a result, looking at the success we were having, I decided it was time to form a task force. We now have what's called the Operation Lone Star Task Force, and we have 20 agencies in there. The border sheriffs have just approached me. They want to join as well. And so it's going to expand. So on that side, the governor has given us the funding to do that. And it's been extremely successful, and we're knocking down a lot of organizations. We had 4 major organizations and a whole bunch of small ones that were coming through Goliad County. We have now basically diverted all the 4 major organizations that were trafficking through our jurisdiction. But they all still come through. They're just going around us towards San Antonio to get to Houston. We recently took down the majority of one of those organizations that's actually directly Gulf Cartel, but we're working on doing more. But it's a monumental task. And the problem is, well, I see some of y'all have it, because I've seen some of y'all. Did y'all saw the papers that I laid out on the desk? Did y'all get copies of those? There's a 1, there's a 2, there's a 3. And so those are the documents I put together for the legislature and went up and testified on. And that was educating the legislators on what was going on and how it was impacting us at the local level. I also did a couple of those for the governor. The governor received them, took a look at them, and has graciously given us pretty much everything that I've asked for. But you can ask, I'm a persistent ass. I just am. I'm a pain. And so, the chief of staff of the governor hears from me constantly. And so I was shoving information down their throats. And so they've provided us with that funding, and we appreciate it greatly. But the problem is, all of this is for naught. And you'll notice on one of those, it's mitigation. You know why? Because nothing that we're doing is designed to stop it. Everything is just designed to mitigate it, to help with it. We're treating the symptom, we're not treating the cause. And I've told the governor this, and my wife says he didn't care for the plan, and I understand, because the governor has to take things into consideration that I don't have to. I'm not an attorney general. I am not the governor. There are things that they do know that I don't. But the only way to stop this is to make Mexico stop it. Because the first thing you need to understand about all this is the fact that Mexico is a failed narco state. And the Mexican government makes hundreds of millions of dollars off of this trafficking. And so you have to get the Mexican government to stop this in their country. You can't allow the cartels to have a beachhead here and expect to win. And so the only way to do that is you have to cause economic pain for Mexico.
Yep.
And the only way to do that is cut off trade with them. If you cut off trade with Mexico, we are their #1 trade partner in the world. Texas is the #1 conduit of that trade. If we shut down all trade with Mexico, we make them feel more economic pain from the loss of legitimate revenue than we do from their gain of their partnership with the cartels. It's the only way to bring it to an end. And something has to be done, because we're losing, and we're losing bad. I'm hoping that after the election and everything settles down, that maybe there'll be some other options put on the table. Like I said, there are things the governor and the AG have to consider that I don't, but we're gonna have to take some bold steps. One last thing I'm gonna ask you. Do y'all think this directly impacts you in Dallas, Texas?
Yes.
Think the cartel is here?
Yes.
They are. I'm gonna give you one quick story. So one Saturday, my guys are out, they're working traffic, they stop a lady. She's got 3 young females with her in the car. They're coming from South Padre Island, they've got pictures of them at the beach, in the hotel, they've got sand, they've got it all. Everything's there to show they're coming back from a week at the beach, which is what their story is. The problem is, it just kind of unfolded as we started to interrogate them. We realized that 3 of the girls were illegal aliens and 1 girl was from Dallas. So we wound up arresting all of them, because in Goliad everybody goes to jail. when you're involved in stuff. Organized crime is, we throw them in jail for engaging in organized criminal activity, human smuggling. Well, we interviewed the girl from Dallas. She tells us that she was in a bar in Dallas. She was recruited to move these girls. They were called specials. And so these girls came up and they thought they were going to be reunited with their family members in Houston, Dallas, and I can't remember where the other one was. But in reality, our investigation showed that they were all going to be taken to Chinatown, Houston, and be put into sex slavery. And the girl who's from Dallas, who was recruited, actually had all their fake Social Security cards in her pants. We got them from her when we stripped her down at the jail. I don't think I would have accepted one of them, but those girls were just going to be out of luck. And they're all fake. And so it is here. The cartel is here. They're recruiting people in your community. They're bringing stuff in. I agree with them. You have to hold your elected officials accountable. Start at the local level, work your way up to the state. Hold them all accountable. Ask them what they're doing, because we have to bring it to an end, because if not, it's the death of the country. So thank you all very much. Appreciate y'all coming in.
Steve, a big round of applause for Kelly Perry, Brent Smith, and Roy Boyd, everybody. I'm going to do a Q&A now. I have a couple of mic runners, so please raise your hand if you have a question, and our mic runners will come up and get your question asked. We all want a couple at the top.
Hi, my name's Kevin Caldwell. It was mentioned earlier something about ISIS. The ISIS cartel, if you will, doesn't exist today because they were all shot and killed. Yep. Brent Smith mentioned that there's two possible solutions. One is the Biden administration, and there wasn't much excitement in the crowd about that. The other was through our Texas governor, Governor Abbott. Sheriff Boyd, you don't report to Biden, and you don't report to Abbott. Let me ask this question. How many cartel members, known cartel members, have been shot and killed in Goliad County?
Absolutely none of them. I will tell you this. We do hunt them down. We identify them. We recently went to Houston, picked up some Gulf Cartel members that were smuggling people through our jurisdiction. And one organization that was coming through, working with the Department of Homeland Security, we've taken out the we took out the number 2 guy in the Gulf Cartels, human trafficking, the number 4 guy, and the number 5 guy in their human trafficking division. And they are all currently locked up. And so we're after the number 4 guy. I'll tell you what, he's a tough booger to catch, but we're gonna get him.
Hi, Patrick. There's all these organizations that are all part of this problem now. You know, we grew up wanting to believe the Red Cross was helpful, or the UN, or all these entities. What organizations can we help that are helping?
I don't know of anybody that's
None.
on our side. You know?
There's a lot of them. If I start doing the acronyms, you guys are gonna be grabbing your phones trying to figure out what all of them are. There are a lot of organizations. There's TPPF, Texas Public Policy Foundation, the Heritage Foundation. What's Todd's group? Okay, so Todd Bensman is one of y'all's speakers at a special event that y'all have coming up. You wanna watch for that. He's an excellent speaker. Center for Immigration Studies. Secure the Border is another group that's actually up here in Dallas. If they don't know who to connect you with, I'll have my cards ready when we finish, and I can connect you to the right people. Ours is Border. Are there other organizations help? So there's Texas Federation of Republican Women, probably in this room. There are several of you that are members or associate members. They're working on different things. Actually, they are, for the first time going into this legislation, they, which are 10,000 strong in the state of Texas, are helping I laugh, I have people that call me a Shrek, S-R-E-C. They're working with the Republican Party of Texas. It gave us another army. There's a lot of people working. You actually have to look for different ones that are focusing on different things. Okay, but I'll give you my card and I will help put you in touch with who you need to speak with.
I'm John from Irving. I've got a thing about the fentanyl deaths. What about the idea of getting every city criminal attorney and every district attorney and every attorney general from any states, any of them that would go along with us? And I know that Let 'em Go Curzo would never do this, but let's turn right around and let's file so many thousands of charges of criminally negligent homicide against Joe Biden.
That is a decent idea. Unfortunately, I know there's sovereign immunity for a lot of office holders that would create an issue there, but, impeachment, I think, is the first step we need to do something with. And there's been many landowners coming to me asking, can we sue Joe Biden? Or what can we do to fix our property, try to get some protection on the border? And, unfortunately, I'd love to take on a whole different case, a civil case, and do everything, but I'm up to my eyeballs of what I can do. So I usually try to pass them along to the South Texas Property Association that has a lot more contacts than I do. But we do have to hold Joe Biden accountable. What he's doing is not out of ignorance. He knows what he's doing. That's why I don't think the federal government's even the solution. I don't even usually waste my breath talking about a solution with the federal government. I've even spoken to several senators, like Ted Cruz and also Chip Roy. They don't see a solution until there's another president. Now, even if the House flips, they can perhaps impeach Mayorkas, but at the end of the day, someone else is just going to take his place to take away from Joe Biden. So until we have a different president in the White House, I don't see much federal help on this. I do know that there's a bill that's being tossed around right now for this next legislative session that's going to try to hire all Border Patrol agents and make them state employees, so Texas can have its own Border Patrol.
Yes.
That is something we need to fix. Because right now we're having to use Department of Public Safety Highway Patrol is our main go-to on border enforcement. And they're great for what they're trained to do, but at the end of the day, they're highway patrolmen. And there's Border Patrol agents I talk to every week that would love to come work for the state, but they have a family themselves. They need a job that pays somewhat similar, so they want to come and help Texas instead. And so I'm sure there's going to be a bill. I think Lieutenant Governor spoke about it on Fox the other day, where we're going to try to hire a Texas Border Patrol, and so we need to push that.
Okay, thank you for the information, and it's so important that we know, the main question I had coming into today's session was, why can't we close the borders? If this was another country, in Czechoslovakia or Canada, and they said close the borders get closed. But I understand now that I thought basically they wanted these people to come over. Okay, but I didn't realize it was sex trade. I was thinking, well, no one wants to work in the United States and these would be the future workers, but that ain't the case either. So thank you for opening up our eyes here in Dallas. And, we're not clean ourselves in America because these cartels, where do you think they're getting the weapons from? So you got something to say, go ahead.
Well, I'm just gonna say, don't buy into the fallacy that the majority of weapons in Mexico come from America. There are some weapons that do go south to Mexico. As a matter of fact, under Obama and under Biden, they both conspired to try to get our weapons into Mexico so that they could be tied back to violence to blame us. But to be quite honest with you, most of the weapons that they use in Mexico are military grade things that you cannot buy here. The cartels get weapons from China. Believe it or not, about 7 or 8 years ago, Russia built a AK-47 factory in South America, and it supplies the cartels with AKs. And believe it or not, the Mexican Mafia and Texas Syndicate have a huge presence in our military and steal a lot of weapons and send those military-grade weapons to Mexico. So, and they also get them from the Mexican government because the cartels and the government work hand in hand.
Good. Thank you for that information. One last thing is, I was reading actually a book called Millennial, and it says if there was a nuclear war, we'd all be going south. And I was wondering if Mexico would stop us if we were going into
Yes, yes. Mexico will throw you in prison. And like me, as a police officer from the United States, if I go there, and it doesn't matter what I go there for, if I go there and they catch me there and they find out I'm a cop from the United States, I actually go to prison for being a spy on their soil. So the cops that used to go to Mexico would have to leave their ID here because you get thrown in prison for that. They're very strict.
I want to say, my name is Arlene Young, my husband Steve, and I'm so glad that we came out here. You really enlightened us. I want to be a part of what can we do. I don't want to just be here, go home and say, well, wow, but really, so what can we do? We have to do something. But here's my question, and I want you to educate me on this. But why? Why is our government in Washington allowed to cause treason on their country? Why?
So he also asked, how come we haven't closed the border? So in our country, everything ends up in court, right? Just think about that. And a few months ago, I agree with you, and I still do. That's not where I'm going with this. But one of the biggest fights was the Constitution, okay? And with the Texas Constitution, that border should be closed. I see what you see, right? It should be closed. It's all right there for us. The problem is that there are people that believe that the Texas Constitution, we don't win, okay? Because Biden could then tell Border Patrol to turn on us, arrest our DPS, our National Guard, and a few months ago, that seemed very far-fetched to me. And so a lot of these think tanks would say, they're not going to do that, they're not going to do that. Well, until I saw what the FBI is doing.
Yes.
So even, this is all I do is fight for this. So hearing that, it made me doubt, again, they might do that. Biden's, I was going to say nuts. I didn't say that. But I don't know what they might tell them to do. And guys, I know y'all have anything to do today, and Kamala said the border is secure. So don't believe anything you see on the news. You have to double check everything that you see by your social media. And you've asked how you can help. Call your legislator every single day. As soon as you get your car, call them. Drive them nuts. Get to know their staff. That's the other thing I need to tell you. The staff rules. You think legislators do? Their staff does. And they'll talk to you and visit with you. And we'll take notes and pass them on. Your legislators, they're great people. We're depending on them to save us. We really, really are depending on us. They have to hear from you. When they hear Kelly Perry's on the phone, they hang up on me. They don't want to hear from me. They want to hear from you. Okay?
Let me add something, because you might run into this with a staffer. So a lot of people throw out the U.S. versus Arizona Supreme Court decision, saying that states can't enforce immigration law. That was a Supreme Court decision back in 2016, 2019, where the state of Arizona passed state law that basically copied federal immigration law. And so when they went to go enforce their state law, it's really immigration law. And U.S. v. Arizona said that Arizona could not do that, only the federal government could enforce immigration law. But what we're talking about here today with declaration of an invasion and securing the state has nothing at all to do with immigration law. A lot of politicians, legislators they get it confused. They'll say, well, Arizona v. U.S., does not allow us to do that. That's false. It's a totally separate legal issue. This is a constitutional Article 1 issue, not Arizona v. U.S. And you'll run into that when you start talking to people because they're not aware of that. But I just want to let y'all know that.
Hey. Me? Okay. Now, I was thinking, what would it take to make an ad campaign that would put bits of information that we heard here, like on the radio? I'm sure it would be much more welcome than you need us to tell you to look both ways across the street, brought to you by Steaming Pile of Crap in the Ad Council. I mean, not like what you might hear on someone's campaign ad, but just a general message that you hear on the radio or so.
Well, that would be where people can donate money to organizations that put that on. Now, what is that organization that does that? That's a Kelly question, but that's a good idea. Our main problem with all this is getting information out to the public. Most people are unaware of this. And that's when Benji called me and I was like, man, Dallas is a long ways away. But I know the longer you drive away, most people don't even know what a bailout is.
Do y'all know what a bailout is? Yeah. Raise your hand if you do. Go ahead.
All right, so what a bailout is myself or one of the deputies, we'll go make a traffic stop. Say it's for speeding, say it's for a bad license plate, and instead of stopping, they'll take off and they'll flee from us. And what they do is they'll look for a spot and they'll usually drive through somebody's fence, tearing up their property, just like Brent explained earlier. And then they will drive off into the brush and they open the doors and they take off running in every direction. And you'll see, like I said, 14 people in a Camaro just coming out and running all over the place. And one little old guy like me, kind of hard to catch them all. But you'll have pickup trucks with 20-something people in them because they'll stack them like cordwood in the bed and put a piece of plywood over them and make them go down the highway. And they'll just be popping out and running all over the place. Sometimes, especially down in LaSalle County, while they're being pursued, they'll slow down and they'll just take one and toss him out while the truck is still rolling down the highway. That way, they're trying to get the deputies to stop and render aid. And so if that doesn't work, then they'll toss another one out while they're going down the highway. And so this is what we deal with on a regular basis.
Okay. I'm Colleen Canyon. Thank you so much for coming. We have been supporting Colonel Thomas Mower. He's with Operation Lone Star Border Surge with care packages. He said they would be very much appreciated. This mission has been ongoing. We do not see any end in sight of the foreseeable future. Many organizations that initially supported us, U.S. Army, have exhausted their resources or moved on to other worthy projects. So we are currently receiving very few items to support our service members on the mission. I shipped to him in Austin care packages. Top items are suntan lotion, bug spray, wet wipes for these people, and they don't want your money, they want care packages. So if you're interested in that, I have his contact information in Austin on Loman Cross. I'll be glad to share it with anybody that wants to get on board with care packages. Thank you.
Any more questions? There's one up there in the top.
Yeah, I heard mention there of an association of counties to do with all this stuff. Not much direct mention at all of direct assistance from Attorney General Paxton and Governor Abbott. Where are they in this picture helping these counties?
Well, we've actually met with Paxton, and he's done quite a bit on the legal side. Just remember this, the Attorney General can't get in a car and come down and send troops down. That's not what he does. He deals with the legal side of things and files lawsuits and fights lawsuits and tries to keep us in the battle from a legal perspective. And Paxton has done that. We've met with him on numerous occasions over the last year and a half, And he asked us what we need, he asked us what our legal challenges are, and I have to say that he's helped us every step of the way. Met with Governor Abbott again Friday evening. Just as a good example, the Operation Lone Star funding. I'm going to tell you that before Operation Lone Star funding came about to us, we were drowning. Governor Abbott threw us a lifeline, allowed me to be able to hire 3 more deputies to put out just for this purpose. It's made a tremendous difference. He did it for the other counties in the South. He has now opened up a second line of funding. He took the money from DPS, who has more money than you shake a stick at. He took it from them and he's given it to locals. 14 million for the border sheriffs, 16 million for the non-border sheriffs. And so we have now submitted our grant applications, and sometime, hopefully in the next 2 weeks, we will have that funding. So they have done things that help us, and they have brought a lot to the table for us. I'll state this, that Governor Abbott, even though you may or may not like whether he's aggressive enough, I'm going to tell you this: he's done more to help secure the state of Texas than any governor in history of the state. He has come to us and asked us, and he has listened to what we have given him, and he has provided us with tools we need to make things happen. And just as an example, I'll tell you, my philosophy is a little different. Most counties, they'll get a load of illegals and they'll turn them over to Border Patrol. Border Patrol takes them, processes them, lets them, and then sends them on their way with an I-94 form that gives them basically an immunity from anything dealing with immigration status. In Goliad, we arrest everybody, we throw them in jail, and by doing that, we're depriving the cartels of the funding that they would get from those individuals as slaves for a long period of time. Hopefully, my goal is, while those people sit in jail and go through the whole system, that the cartel forgets about them and they're off their books, so that we get done, they can get deported or whatever needs to be done with them once they've got their conviction, because at that point, they're not supposed to be eligible for citizenship. And we can get them deported, and then they can go, and instead of being slaves, they can go back to their home country, is what I want them to do. And so I think if we adopted that all across the board, it would probably really deter, but the problem is district attorneys are kind of like sheriffs or cats. We're hard to herd. And so it makes that inconsistency from county to county is a weakness that we have.
One more question.
Yeah, one more question. Just an idea. But, slavery, we fought a big civil war against slavery. And I was just thinking, I says, maybe there's the key, is that if that's the case, slavery is illegal in the United States, but yet it's here, then maybe there's a case there to be made.
The problem is the government is the #1 facilitator of slavery.
Yes.
Because those buses, you've seen Abbott send those buses to different places, but to be quite honest with you, the federal government is putting just thousands and thousands and thousands of people on buses every month and shipping them to where the cartel wants them to go. Yeah. They are putting them in planes, and they're flying them where the cartel wants them to go. And they're turning them over to the cartel. They know this. They're actually so full, the buses and the planes, that the government is now actually hiring taxis at $500 a trip to come to the valley, pick up illegals, and drive them to Houston to the cartels. And so you're right. Just remember this. The key thing is, every person in the world is made in the image of God, and nobody deserves to be a slave. Right. Everybody deserves to be treated with dignity. It is not dignified to be brought to this country thinking you're going to get freedom, only to find yourself in a peon class, living in squalor as a slave in the greatest country that ever has been. Right. Nobody should have it. I'm going to tell you now that we've reported millions and millions of these people that are in slavery right here in the United States. We're catching over 100,000 a month in the state of Texas alone. Border Patrol is, and they're telling me if they're lucky, they're catching 10% of what comes across. I have Border Patrol agents tell me that in 2021, they estimate somewhere between 18 and 25 million people actually came over that border. Those people are slaves. We are developing a peon class, Nobody deserves to be in slavery, and one of these days, those people are gonna number in the tens and tens and tens of millions, and they're gonna rise up and demand what's rightfully theirs, because our freedoms come from God, they don't come from the government. And when they stand up and they demand their freedom, and they demand their piece of this pie, it's gonna be a day of reckoning for us. And rightfully so, because we've allowed it to take place.
One thing I'll add to that, and I think we'll have a better chance of pushing the message with fentanyl. Fentanyl has killed today more people than the Vietnam War did combined. Every day people are dying from it, all over the United States. Even the governor from Alaska, was stating how much of a problem it is for his community in Alaska. That's gonna be the main crisis, because what happens when these people come over, it's either a distraction for other places where fentanyl's coming over, or they're smuggling fentanyl in themselves. The majority of these people are, like Sheriff Boyd said, gonna be slaves to the cartels, but there's a lot of them, they're just straight criminals. They're coming in, they're cartel operatives. And so you have a mixture of people. It's not a clear cut who's coming over. It's a mixed bag of this and that, but the drugs is poisoning and killing more Americans today than anything we've never seen anything like this. Not with cocaine, not with any other drug.
They're not reporting it. They reported all the COVID-19, but I was just wondering how, maybe we should have a fentanyl 19.
Well, and remember this, the same people who are bringing over these slaves are the exact same people that are bringing in the fentanyl, same groups.
Right.
They could have, because the government doesn't want them to go away, they want them here.
Just touching fentanyl without protection will kill you. It'll absorb through your skin into your bloodstream. Yes, sir, in the yellow shirt.
If and when foreign militaries begin to cross that border, how will our action be different if the Biden administration is supportive of that activity?
They're not gonna cross, they have no use in sending military. We're being killed from within, attacked from within.
Right.
That's too overt. It's just like coming to pick up your guns. They'll never come pick up your guns because that's too overt. They have other ways of doing that.
If that happened, our military would be able to step in, and they would. But they have to, in order for our military to step in and help, the federal government has to say that they're terrorists. And they're not going to. I know y'all all thought you were coming for big motivational pick-me-up, and we come in, and it is very sad, and it's very distressing. It's even more so to know that it's your own government.
Yeah.
I really appreciate y'all coming. We basically all live in the Wild West. Texas is big. It's your state too.
Yes.
I know that you leave here and you're really, I know, I can feel it. I feel it in the room. I can see it in the room. It's really what we set out to do. Sorry. But there is a lot that you can do. I'll have my cards. You can talk to Benji. He's got ideas. There are things. Please don't leave here today and go home and just worry about it and not do something. Every person in here can use their phone.
Give another big round of applause. Kelly Perry, Brent Smith, and Sheriff Boyd. Thank you all so much for being here tonight. Before I get to a couple of announcements in our raffle, I would like to thank our partners and vendors as well. A Better Dallas, Texas Freedom Coalition, DFW Deplorables, Hispanic Republican Club of North Texas, and Hispanic Republicans of Texas, and Texas Protective Security, and James for all the amazing sound and lights and everything here, and all of our amazing volunteers. Big round of applause for everybody involved. A couple of quick announcements. We invite all of you to join us on Thursday, October 13th for our annual Sukkot Under the Stars holiday dinner party. This is one of my favorite events of the year. This year I think it's probably going to be our best that we've ever done it. We have an incredible speaker in Todd Bensman, who is the author of America's Covert Border War and Overrun, How Joe Biden Unleashed the Greatest Border Crisis in U.S. History. He's also the Senior Writing Fellow at the Center for Immigration Studies, as I mentioned, and the Middle East Forum. We're also going to have some prominent rabbis there, live jazz music, gourmet food, open bar is one of the best parties of the year, so please do not miss it. Registration is still open and tickets are limited now, so please make sure you get your tickets. Finally, if you're not already registered, although I think everybody in here probably is registered to vote, make sure you do so no later than October 11th. If you need help with that, please stop by our table outside, and I'll make sure to get you on a list and get you signed up to register to vote.
I've got registration cards right here.
Oh, we got a registrar up there. Okay.
And if you need to change your address, I can do that too.
Beautiful. Thank you very, very much. Alrighty. Without further ado, our raffle for the evening